Decided to record another video. So I was driving the motion sim after I got back from the Big Sandy shoot, and now the left side keeps cutting out, the IBT2 does. And I've always wanted to do parallel IBT2s, which is basically I'll run two of the motor controllers for one of the motors. And so you got to do a couple things in order to achieve that. So the first thing I did was reverse the heat sinks on this. I've basically done that with all of my IBT2s, and I went and got much longer screws than I really needed to. But that's actually so I could dual stack the heat sinks like I currently have on the motion sim rig inside. But for these ones, I'm just going to single stack them because I don't think that dual stacking really helps much. So I'm just going to single stack them, but then the heads of the screws on bottom, let's see if I can get you a good view on that. There you go. The heads on the bottom basically pinch in between the fins, which allow these to stack up like you see right there. And then I've got the, there we are, the 4-pin ribbon cables. I've got two of those, one on each, and I've basically soldered those together so it'll still have the same pin out as if it was one IBT2, which is basically putting it in parallel. So that way, the whole point of this is basically the two IBT2s should be able to share the load of what the motor is. And so these are the outputs. You've got to basically do the same thing. You've got to connect the outputs on the top and bottom. So that's the part I'm doing right now. I've got to solder up these 8 joints right here, and then we're gonna heat shrink them so that way they won't, no chance of them touching and contacting each other and doing all kinds of bad things. So basically I'm going to replace the current IBT2s. I've just got 2 on there powering the 2 front motors currently with these 4 IBT2s in parallel, which should basically half the thermal load and the I'm not quite sure about the power, if it has the power load, but basically since they're sharing the load, I should be able to get higher peaks and more stress on the rig. So I'm basically just going to test it out and then possibly move the motors back on the rig itself. So I'll probably get another video of that. Alright, so I've got those IBT2 in parallel. I got those built and put in. But now the motion sim is doing something a little strange. It is basically anytime I add extra pressure onto the traction loss motor, which would actually be that IBT2 there, the only single that I have. Whenever I put pressure like on the back of the rig and push it that way or that way, just put any pressure on that motor, it kills this motor and this motor in the IBT2 software. So I'm not sure why that happens. So to remedy that, what I'm going to do is just build out another parallel. I'm not sure if it's maybe the Arduino is freaking out because it's sending parallel signals to these two, even though it technically shouldn't know that because it's only sending it down one cord. I don't know. I'm just trying to eliminate all possibilities here. I can't figure out why this thing keeps shutting off, so I'm just going to go build up another IBT2 in parallel and hook it up here, which is good because it'll actually give me some extra length on the cables to that rear motor back there. So I'm going to go build that up, and then we'll report back in and see how it does. I got all 3 of the IBT2s paralleled and mounted in there, so that's good. It did not immediately resolve the issue. It did make things a little bit better, but then I started messing around with the Arduino. Let's see here. I changed out the USB cable on the Arduino, which you can see there. And then I took the Arduino off of that, the USB hub that's down there, and then connected it straight into a USB 2.0 on the back of the computer. And that still, it did a lot better, but it still didn't fix it. So the last thing I had to do was set the power output inside of SMC3 from 400 to 350 for all the motors. The rear motor is still, the rear and the front left motor, both they twitch. So when they, instead of moving smoothly, they'll get to a part of their range where they move smoothly, and then they like can freak out and twitch. And that usually would cause a power surge that would cause too much power on those IVT2s and shut them off. So by lowering that, I've at least eliminated hitting that power cutoff, so that's good. And then I don't believe I've shown you guys this yet, but this is the third motor. I had to create this little bracket here to screw it in there, and then the bracket just goes up to a 2x4 there. Other side of the bracket there, otherwise it would be too floppy and it would just move around. And then the fan is just screwed into the 2x4 there, and it's pretty much pointed exactly at your face. And then when I mounted these, I mounted those down to the bottom out by the footwells, basically because I wanted these the dryer vents basically to come up over there. It just gives it a better look, I feel. So I just got done testing it out with the IBT2s in parallel. I raced, I don't know, for about 40 minutes or so, 30-40 minutes, and they didn't shut off a single time. The motors do get kind of warmish. They do get a little warmish with play now, but it's just because I keep adding more and more crap onto the chair, making it heavier and heavier. Plus, every time I add more stuff to the front of the chair down there, I would technically have to rebalance it, which I haven't done since I first set this up. That U-joint location hasn't shifted at all. I have shifted the motors back and forward. They've basically been there, and then there's the holes right there. Actually, it might have been, it's one of those two locations. Both locations is where I tried mounting them. But I think I reversed the motors and then I mounted them at where the pencil marks are, to get the geometry correct. So I don't know if I'm going to do that. It does give, if I move them back further, it does give them more articulation. It does give more throw, but again, it takes way more power to do that. So I think I'm going to forego doing that, and we will just start building the 3DOF with heave. So I'm going to take you guys outside and show you that. So this is the next project. It probably doesn't look like much, looks a little weird, but essentially what it is 3 of these mobility scooters. It's the rear end from those. Unlike the wheelchairs have 2 motors on either side, and they use differential thrust to drive them, or to turn, essentially. The scooters don't need that because they have steering apparatus on them. So I got these 3 here, took the rear off of those. So I'm going to configure them into this triangle type thing. I'm going to disassemble all the crap off of them. Obviously, all of these motor controllers and chargers and stuff, I'm just going to take all that stuff off and, potentially sell it on eBay. I'm not sure what I'll do with it. But this is what the configuration will look like. So on each one of these hubs will be, it'll come off of here with the lever arm, and then the lever arm will be connected to this large arch thing that will basically have to connect both of these 2 hubs together. So there'll be a lever arm coming off of here, a lever arm coming off of here, and then there'll be a large arch, or just basically a bar to connect them, a bar that will have to go up and then over and then down, because it's basically the thing that will connect the top platform to the bottom platform. And that won't, I can't use tie rods like I normally would, because there's nothing to prevent the thing from yawing and collapsing on itself. So I'll have to use a different mounting method for everything. But essentially what this motion simulator will give me is this will give me heave along with pitch and roll. And then I can take one of the other motors that I have spare and then create a traction loss platform for this to sit on as well, and then that would make this a 4DOF. So this is basically the next step that I'm going to try, and the next machine I'm going to try and build. And the G seat is currently just chilling. It's pretty much, it is mostly built. It's sitting over here. It's got, the motors. Oops, sorry. The motors are in there. The potentiometer mounts are put in. Potentiometers are connected. I have them wired up. They're not actually connected to the Arduino and the motor controllers yet, just because, again, I want to get the back set working. Once I get these back set working, then getting those bottom front sets will be easy. I'll know exactly what I need to do, and wiring everything up only takes a couple minutes anyway, so that's why that's left in that state. But currently I don't have software that would really work for my G seat. I do have something that I got off xsimulator.net that clips the limits of the potentiometer, and it works perfectly for this motor, but it doesn't work for this motor because that motor is opposing and the potentiometer is opposing. So I basically have someone looking at the code to see if they can figure out how to separate potentiometer 1 and 2 to where you can invert potentiometer 2 with the code, or see what he can do to figure it out. But basically this, in order to get this working with the code as is, I would have to flip that motor and that potentiometer around, which I could theoretically do here. It would really mess up everything up in there, so I'm not really looking forward to doing that, but I cannot do that here. These motors essentially have to stay in this configuration in order for these lever arms to be connected to roughly a point on the paddle in which your butt would be sitting on it, and all of that weight would be on there. If I put them in the same direction, then both of them would probably, both of them would be pointing that way, and I just don't know how I would do that at all. So I don't want to do that, so I have him looking at that software, so that's why the G seat isn't complete yet. But once that software is figured out, then I'll get this up and running. So in the meantime, I'm going to work on that 3DOF, because I'm pretty much have my 3DOF downstairs. That's fairly well dialed in. I need to figure out those potentiometer issues for motor 1 and motor 3. But other than that, it's working how I want it. It's powerful, like it's a good little machine. So, but now I want to see if I can incorporate heave in the next build. And then from there, I still got 3 motors down there from the wheelchairs. So I still do want to build a 6DOF. We'll see how this 3DOF goes, and then potentially turning into a 4DOF. I would actually use that motor on the end there for the traction loss, just like I have on my other setup. And the good news on the 3DOF is hopefully it should be a lot lighter. That's the plan anyway. I'm actually, let's take a trip back over there. I'm actually going to use these frames, I'm thinking, these frames right here, to create the upper frame, between that frame, and then this used to be a frame. It's now just a big loop of metal, because I've essentially cut everything out of here that used to be a frame to use as spare metal for everything else. But I mean, I can wrap that around that. Not sure exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but that is the plan currently. Use one of those two, that one or that one, to create the upper frame. And I mean, if I can keep this upper frame around that size, that is fairly light, like way lighter than the current upper frame, the wooden 2x4 one. So, alright, that's pretty much the updates for right now. I'll post another video once I have more progress on this 3DOF or the G-seat. And actually, I'll probably upload another video of me racing on my current 3DOF. So, talk to you guys later.